Get your music across the finish line with XRACER Productions. Our artist-focused services include production, distribution, gigs, and more. Connect with us at xracerproductions.com. Welcome to Music Makers on Making Music. Today we have a native of New Orleans and bassist extraordinaire, Ted Gould III, a.k.a. Blyss. What's up, Ted? How you doing?
Doing good, man. How you doing? Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Hey, man, thanks for coming.
Right on.
So, Ted, you're about to jump off into a new project. You're about to move to New Orleans after decades in the Bay Area.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Where you've really had most of your music career to date outside of New Orleans.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So what have been some of the highlights of your musical career in the last 20 years or so?
Last 20 years, man, oddly enough, being a New Orleans native, a highlight of my career in the Bay Area has been playing with funk legend Zigaboo Model East from the Meters, who happens to live here in the Bay Area also.
Yeah.
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 So there's a lot of like well-known names, but some of the biggest highlights, man, have been, the down and dirty casuals,
right,
and in the clubs here in the Bay Area, especially, like the early 2000s, man, when, Red Devil was popping, Tongue and Groove.
You've been doing a lot of gigging over the years.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that late night schlepping,
But now you're about to jump off into a new project, your own project.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the project, the artist moniker is Brother Theodore, and full length 10-song album with just kind of getting my story out there. Some songs that I've written, a couple of covers, doing sort of I like to think is an interesting version of Allison by Elvis Costello. Also Strawberry Letter 23.
Oh, I love
Johnson.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, featuring Tamar Gillette on lead vocals on that. But just, I've been a sideman for a long time and helping a lot of people tell their stories, and I absolutely love that role. But I just felt like the time was right for me to put things together and tell my own story.
Yeah, what is it about this time that makes it the right time for you to jump off in this new direction?
Man, I have musicians that I've really, been in the trenches with. The core of the group, Cam Parrish, who's co-producing and doing all the mixing and engineering on guitar. We've been playing together for years. Eamon Flynn, who I played with Zigaboo with, Scott Keller on drums. Eamon is on keys. That's the core group. Then I've got some auxiliary players, Bay Area notables, Rich Armstrong, Daniel Casares, Sonara Pippins, Tamar Gillette, and just the energy and the vibe is just right. But the relationships are so solid. Yeah. It's one thing to get a project together and hire a bunch of musicians, right?
Right.
And you come out with one thing, and that thing could be good. But I think you always come out with a greater thing with people that you've had these long relationships with. And so these people are people I consider family. I'm not a guy that throws love and family and all that thing, out there just kind of willy-nilly. These, that's what's right about now.
So this project's called Brother Theodore?
I've been known as Blyss for a long time, as a sideman, as a, creative in the Bay Area. My birth name is Theodore. And so I've taken that moniker and just kind of thrown the brother on there because I think it's cool. So
it is cool.
Yeah,
Brother
thank
Theodore.
you. So
and the name of the album is?
The name of the album is Saint Anne.
St. Anne, and what's the significance of that?
St. Anne is the name of the street that I grew up on in New Orleans, and it's where I came of age. I grew up on a street with a Baptist church in the middle of the block, and two hourly motels on the corner facing each other, right behind the Carver Theater in New Orleans in the Treme. So it is a record also dedicated to my mother and my memory of her. There's the sort of title track is called "The Ghost of St. Anne," which is about my memories of my mother in that time, and us kind of, her trying to raise a black male child in the hood during that time, and yeah, so it's like a full circle thing that's happening right now.
Right on. And so you're gonna play something for us today?
Yeah.
What you got?
I'm gonna play a cut called the Space Between, which is on the record. You were asking a little while ago about Ronnie Beck, who played with Tower of Power. He actually plays drums on this track, but I'm gonna do just a piano and vocal version of it.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, cool.
Ted Gould, about to get funky on the piano. See, you throw us a little curveball. The bassist comes in, and the first thing he wants to do
is play piano. Yeah, you're right. Well, it's all music, man.
All right, well, let's check it out.
There's a bittersweet light in your eyes, just like stormy southern skies that tell me you want to, but you can't stay. But if you want me, I'll be waiting right here whenever you need. But if it's only in the space between, why don't you meet me in New Orleans? New Orleans, New Orleans. Why don't you meet me in New Orleans? If it's only in the space between, why don't you meet me in New Orleans? There is something in your glance that says you leap if you only had the chance. But honey, there's no way to follow your head and still follow your heart. I can see it when you smile, and it's been there all the while. 'Cause we know the truth, we both know the truth that keeps us apart. New Orleans, New Orleans. Why don't you meet me in New Orleans? But if it's only in the space between, why don't you meet me in New Orleans? If you want, I'll keep the light on. Even though you know the way. Girl, while you're gone, I'll keep your side warm. Hoping that one day, maybe one day you'll stay. If I could, I'd stay and be close to you each and every day. But if it's only in the space between, why don't you meet me in New Orleans? New Orleans, New Orleans. Why don't you meet me in New Orleans? But if it's only in the space between, why don't you meet me in New Orleans, sugar? Why don't you meet me in New Orleans? Why don't you meet me in New Orleans?
That was The Space Between from the forthcoming Brother Theodore album, St. Anne.
Yes, sir.
That was beautiful, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So, it's apropos that you're about to move back to New Orleans with this album.
Yeah.
It's really like it's a love letter to your home.
It is. It is. I wouldn't say that the whole record there, but there are definitely, that song and of course the 504. I mean, the 504 written by myself and Nate Cameron is definitely a love letter to not just New Orleans, but specifically there are references to the New Orleans that we both grew up in.
Right.
That pre-Katrina snap that was happening.
Well, so I was really feeling the space between. What was going on with you when you wrote this song?
Can't say.
All right, some deep stuff then, huh?
We all find ourselves in situations sometimes where where you
going through it.
You make do with the space between.
Yeah. Right. That's why it's so relatable.
Sure.
You can feel it.
Sure.
Okay, so I heard one of the covers that you did, Elvis Costello's Allison. Why did you pick that song?
I always dug that tune. Always, just something about I can hear it now. Just it's so organic sounding, and it's it's got this pop thing, this rock thing, but it's real soulful. And on St. Anne Street, man, I can remember hearing it, with my black light and my Bruce Lee poster and hearing it for the first time. I always dug it, and I would play around with trying to sing it, but I wasn't a guitar player. So, and then the limitations of a 4-string bass, you have to get creative with how you chord things. And so to get the most important notes of the chords, I would wind up playing, 7th chord voicings, which gave it a more, for lack of a better term, a jazzier sort of a quality, and allowed me to play it and sing it at the same time. And that has just kind of become it was a part of my kind of solo repertoire whenever I kind of did a little, playfully did a little solo thing here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, love that tune.
And this album, it sounded like it's really a mix of of the broad influences that you've had throughout your life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'd be remiss if I did not say the first cut on the record is called Inside My Groove, which is stylized.img, like the image file. And so lucky that to have two Prince alumni playing on that song. Got Dr. Fink on there from the Revolution, and Levi Caesar, the only cat to play both guitar and bass with Prince.
Yeah, and how did that come about?
I actually played with. I'd been recruited by Levi. I kind of knew him passively through different people, and he had contacted me to sub out some things for his Prince tribute. And I never played a show with them, but I did a few rehearsals. And he asked me, he was like, "You know Jody Watley's material?" And I was like, yeah. And so, we played briefly with Jody Watley, and then we had another project he recruited me for called Love Jet. I did that for a while, and a couple summers ago, I spent a lot of time with Levi, and just, that guy is like funk on feet, man. Yeah. Beautiful cat.
Speaking of Prince, he's one of your big influences.
Absolutely.
Does he influence your songwriting?
I wouldn't say that he's my primary source of inspiration, but
is there a Prince vibe that sort of gets into the foundation?
Man, my formative years as a musician, man, was that whole Dirty Mind, 1999, controversy era. When I was just, that's, I learned how to play the bass, playing Uptown. So that stuff, like the tune I was just talking about, you listen to it and it's got a very, there's no denying that feel, you know what I mean? But then there's, but I also grew up in the Baptist church. So, there's that influence. And we were talking a little while ago about Armed Forces Radio. So there's things like Allison, and the Space Between has a very kind of classic New Orleans vibe to it, classic soul vibe to it. So,
there's something to be said for this idea of genreless music, and in a lot of ways, Prince did that.
Sure.
And I'm feeling that vibe from you as well, though.
That's huge.
We can call it this and we can call it that, but it really, we're defying genre here.
Well, I would definitely call my music, funk and soul, for sure. But music is music, man. And this is this is the space I'm in right now, and but I've set out to make a record that tells stories, that says, these are things I'm feeling and things I've experienced, and then I want you to know about them. And right now they just happen to be packaged in this, kind of funk and soul thing. If the universe allows me to do another one, it might be something else.
All right, we're going to have more with Ted Gould III, a.k.a. Brother Theodore, after the break.
Tweak Studio is one of the premier providers of audio for home and business. We represent over 100 brands, including top-of-the-line products by Burmester, YG Acoustics, Transrotor, and KEF. Our goal is to provide unique, customized solutions for our clients that result in optimal sound performance. For the best audio products and service, contact Tweak Studio today at tweakstudio.com.
We're back with more Ted Gould on Music Makers on Making Music.
Right on. Sound like Barry White there for a second, but right on.
All right, Ted, so you've got another track from the forthcoming album that we're going to listen to right now.
Yes, sir.
It's called
The 504.
The 504.
Giacomo Finane. Giacomo Finane. Giacomo Finane.
Yeah, you're right. 504, you heard me?
So, Ted, you've got a book out
Yep.
called The Blue Collar Bassist.
Yes, sir.
Who'd you write that book for?
I wrote that book for, people who are trying to get out there in the trenches, they young or old, they've got the bass and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I get started? How do I meet people? How do I get gigs? How do I get my name out there in the circuit? And I think there's a lot of great material out there showing people how to play the instrument. Here's how you hold the bass. Here's how you play this scale or that. But beyond that information, there's so many things that we, often have to learn the hard way. So what I've done is tried to condense, 15, 20 years as a sideman down into, into this book and kind of give people some insights into what it's really like to be in the trenches, work as a sideman, and get out there. Also, more importantly, this is not about how to go get gigs with major label artists or anything like that. You certainly could use this information to help you on that journey, but there's a sort of a stigma nowadays that you're either Jocko or you're nobody.
Right.
And that's just not the case. I mean, there are guys that are, and when I say guys, I mean men and women who are out there making records, playing in theater pits, doing the church thing, playing cover bands. They're doing all kinds of stuff, and they're making a living in whole or in part by playing the bass. So it's definitely doable.
It's one thing to get into the music business, but it's a whole nother thing to develop a career as a musician.
Absolutely.
What have been some of the keys for you to maintain as a musician all these years?
Relationships. Having a positive attitude and just trying to be the person that when people see you walk in the door, there's a sigh of relief. There's no anxiety. They're like, this guy's gonna, put us all at ease. He's gonna know our parts. He's gonna play appropriately for the music. He's gonna be a good hang, easy to work with. Something we talked about earlier is just trying to leave the situation better than it was when you got there. Definitely not worse. You know what I mean? Definitely not worse. So I really think the key to this thing is relationships. They say it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right on.
So that's truer words have never been spoken.
Well, thank you, Ted, for coming on the show. The
Thanks for having
forthcoming
me.
album, Brother Theodore,
St. Anne.
and the book is called
The Blue Collar Bassist, How to Get Gigs and Be the Kind of Player That Everyone Wants to Hire.
And how can we stay in touch with you?
Instagram @sonofabass, brothertheodoremusic.com. YouTube is actually still on the old handle, youtube.com/Blyss with a Y, but I'm pretty easy to find.
You've been listening to Music Makers on Making Music. And if you enjoy our show, subscribe to XRACER Productions on YouTube.